The market on Vedra Prime was alive with noise. Ships buzzed overhead, casting long shadows on the crowded streets below. Merchants shouted, selling everything from old starship parts to rare alien artifacts. Sparks flew from repair stalls and the smell of oil mixed with roasted food. Most people walked past quickly, eyes down, hurrying to buy or sell. But Ronan Hale moved slowly, scanning every stall. His eyes were sharp, trained from years of scavenging. His hands were scarred from past work, his clothes worn, and a small bag of credits swung at his hip. He had nothing left to lose, and he was looking for something unusual, something no one else could see. Among the usual junk and broken machines, a small cage caught his eye. The sign above it read, "Dragon Useless. 3 credits." The letters were faded, almost peeling off. Inside, a creature curled up, small, thin, and trembling. Its scales looked cracked and weak. Its wings were torn, and patches of metal seemed grafted to its flesh like failed repairs. The dragon lifted its head slowly, amber eyes flickering as it watched the crowd. Most people didn't even glance at it. They said things under their breath, calling it trash or dead weight. The merchant shrugged, not caring who bought it. Ronan's pulse quickened. He felt something that most people missed. A faint hum of energy, a spark of intelligence, a life force fighting against decay. He reached out, resting a hand lightly on the cage. The dragon hissed softly, not in anger but in warning. "You're weak," it seemed to say. "Are you brave enough?" Ronan smiled faintly. He didn't have a choice. He could not leave it here. 3 credits. That was all it took. He dug into his bag, counting carefully. Coins clinked as he dropped them into the merchant's palm. The merchant laughed, assuming Ronan had wasted his money. "Enjoy your broken toy, human," he said, waving him off. Ronan ignored the words, focusing instead on the dragon's eyes. He saw something there, a flicker of hope. And he knew deep down that this creature could be more than it seemed. Ronan lifted the cage carefully, feeling the weight of the small, fragile body inside. The dragon shifted, its tail brushing against his arm. It did not fight. It did not claw. It seemed to sense that this human was different from the others. Ronan whispered, "We'll fix you. I promise." The dragon blinked slowly, almost as if it understood. The streets were still busy and Ronan moved quickly. He needed to get away before anyone else noticed what he carried. Word traveled fast in the bazaar, and a useless dragon could attract the wrong kind of attention. Mercenaries, scavengers, even corrupt city officials looking for exotic creatures to exploit. He kept his eyes forward, careful to avoid sudden crowds, and adjusted the cage on his shoulder. Every step made him more aware of how fragile the creature was, and how much responsibility he had taken on. When he reached the edge of the bazaar, a young girl ran past, bumping into his shoulder. She gasped at the cage. "That thing's real?" she whispered, awe in her voice. Ronan just nodded, his own heart racing. The dragon lifted its head again and let out a low growl, almost a rumble, that made her step back. "Careful," Ronan said quietly. "It's not as harmless as it looks." As he moved into the quieter alleys, the dragon stirred more. Its wings twitched, testing muscles that hadn't moved properly for years. Sparks of energy flickered along the metallic patches on its body. Ronan paused, sensing that the creature was struggling to stay calm in its new environment. He knelt for a moment, lowering the cage to the ground. The dragon raised its head fully and met his gaze. For a few tense seconds, the world felt silent, as if they were alone in the galaxy. Then came a sudden noise, a shout from behind him. 2 men in dark cloaks had noticed the cage. "Hey, that's ours. The merchant says it's worth a fortune." One of them stepped forward, hand on a blaster. Ronan's chest tightened. He did not want to fight, but he also knew he could not give up the dragon. Not now, not ever. He lifted the cage slightly in front of him, shielding it. "Back off," he said, voice steady. "This creature isn't for you." The men laughed, their weapons raised. "A human thinks it can stop us?" one sneered. "You're going to regret this." Ronan didn't flinch. He had survived worse than thieves and mercenaries. He had learned to think faster, move smarter, and trust his courage when all odds were against him. The dragon stirred beside him, and its small growl grew louder, sharper, as if it understood the threat. Ronan took a deep breath. "I don't care what you think," he said. "I'll fight if I have to. But this dragon lives. And you will not take it." The men hesitated, surprised by the human's confidence. Then, as if sensing the human's determination, the dragon flared its wings slightly, releasing a pulse of energy that made the air shimmer. The men stumbled back, startled, their eyes wide. Ronan's heart pounded, but he knew this was only the beginning. The dragon was weak, injured, and unpredictable, but it had potential. And if he could survive the night, protect it, and find a way to heal it, they could both rise above the odds. He lifted the cage again and moved quickly down the alley, shadows hiding them as he vanished into the city's maze. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Ronan knew this wasn't just about survival. It was about courage, about refusing to accept limits, about proving that even the weakest could rise if someone was brave enough to believe. And as the dragon's faint growl echoed behind him, he felt a spark of hope. A spark that would grow into something the galaxy had never seen. But the streets were dangerous and enemies were patient. The night was far from over, and the first real challenge was waiting just ahead. Ronan ducked into his workshop, a small, cluttered space at the edge of Vedra Prime's industrial district. The air smelled of oil, metal, and soldering sparks. Shelves overflowed with half-built machines, alien tech, and the remnants of starships he had scavenged over the years. The dragon's cage thudded lightly as he set it down, careful not to jostle the fragile creature. It stirred, wings twitching, but remained calm as if trusting him already. Ronan knelt beside it, inspecting the broken wings and fused neural patches. The dragon's body was a tangle of metal and flesh, a living machine that had been neglected and abused. Its breathing was shallow, eyes dull from exhaustion. Most people would have dismantled it, stripped it for parts, and sold them for a small profit. But Ronan refused. He had seen too many lives lost because humans chose convenience over courage. This dragon deserved a chance. He ran his hands over its body, feeling the pulse of its weak energy. The mechanical patches were fused incorrectly, some wires burned or corroded. Worse, he saw tiny parasite marks along the dragon's spine, minute alien organisms burrowing into its nervous system, slowly destroying it from the inside. The dragon hissed softly, a sound of discomfort and warning. Ronan took a deep breath. "I know," he whispered. "I'll fix this. Don't give up on me." He pulled out a toolbox, carefully selecting instruments small enough for the dragon's delicate systems. One wrong move could kill it instantly. The first few attempts with repair drones failed. They were designed for starships, not living creatures fused with technology. Sparks flew, alarms beeped, and the dragon growled in frustration. Ronan stayed calm, adjusting circuits by hand, his fingers steady despite the tension. He had to be precise, every move measured because one mistake could undo everything. Hours passed. The dragon's wings twitched at every sound, its eyes following him intently. It seemed to understand that Ronan's presence was its only hope. For the first time, the creature's growls sounded less like fear and more like recognition. "We'll get through this," Ronan said, his voice low but firm. "I'm not giving up." A sudden knock at the workshop door made him jump. He froze, eyes darting to the entrance. Outside, voices murmured, probably mercenaries or thieves looking for the dragon. Ronan grabbed a small energy barrier device from his shelf and activated it. A shimmering wall formed between him and the door. "You'll have to wait," he muttered. "I'm not done here." Inside, the dragon's body began to respond to his careful work. He had managed to reconnect a few neural nodes, rewire damaged circuits, and remove some parasites manually. The creature's breathing steadied slightly, and its eyes grew brighter, sharper. It moved its head, tilting it as if studying him. Ronan felt a pang of hope. This small, broken dragon was starting to awaken. But the challenge was far from over. The dragon's neural core was unstable, erratic. One wrong voltage, one misaligned wire, and it could shut down, or worse, lash out. Ronan's hands shook slightly as he adjusted the core, sweat dripping from his brow. "Steady," he whispered. "I've faced worse. You and I, we can do this." A sharp hiss interrupted him. The dragon had noticed something. Outside, lights flickered, shadows moving too quickly. Someone was watching. Ronan's heart pounded, but he did not panic. Humans survived because they could think fast when others froze. He activated automated traps around the workshop, scrambling signals, magnetic pulses, a few harmless but effective deterrents. If they tried to enter, they would be delayed, giving him time to focus on the dragon. Minutes stretched. Every movement he made required perfect precision. He had to balance speed with care. The dragon shifted, testing muscles that hadn't worked in years. Its wings flared slightly, then relaxed, responding to his encouragement. Ronan adjusted its neural stabilizer again, feeling the pulse of energy synchronize with the creature's natural rhythm. He whispered softly, "You're stronger than they say. You just need a chance." Suddenly, the dragon let out a low, trembling roar, not loud but deep, full of life and recognition. It startled Ronan, making him stumble back slightly. He realized the creature wasn't just healing, it was responding to human courage and care. It had been weak, beaten, dismissed, but under his hands, it was beginning to fight back. The sound of approaching footsteps reminded him that the city outside was still dangerous. Mercenaries wouldn't give up easily. But inside the workshop something had changed. The dragon's eyes shone with intelligence and trust. Ronan felt a surge of determination. This was more than mechanics. It was survival, loyalty, and courage intertwined. He had taken a life most people considered worthless, and now that life depended on him and he depended on it. As night fell over Vedra Prime, the dragon's cage glowed faintly from the stabilizer energy. Ronan leaned close, examining the final circuits he needed to repair. Outside, shadows lurked, waiting. Inside, he whispered, "We're not done yet. We survive tonight and we rise tomorrow." The dragon's low growl rumbled in agreement. It would not be easy. But for the first time in years, it felt alive. And Ronan knew with certainty that whatever challenges the city sent next, neither of them would back down. Something was coming, something dangerous, and the first real test of their partnership would begin before sunrise. Ronan had barely finished adjusting the last stabilizer circuits when he heard the first knock at the workshop door. At first it was slow, cautious. Then it grew louder, more insistent. Voices shouted from outside, rough and demanding. "Open up. That dragon belongs to us." Ronan's heart rate climbed, but he didn't panic. He had survived worse than desperate scavengers. Humans thrived when the odds were stacked against them, when every decision had weight, when courage mattered more than size or firepower. He crouched low beside the dragon's cage, fingers brushing its scales, feeling the energy pulse through the stabilizers. The dragon's wings twitched. It had sensed the danger too. Its growl was low, warning, cautious, but Ronan saw something else. Recognition, understanding, even trust. He whispered, "Stay calm. I'll handle this." The first intruder's shoulder slammed against the door, testing the barrier. Ronan activated a series of small devices he had set up earlier. Magnetic pulses that scrambled electronics, smoke emitters that filled the room with thick gray haze, and a few harmless but disorienting shock traps. The intruders cursed and stumbled back. He heard the sound of one man's blaster discharging prematurely into the ceiling, sparks flying. Ronan smirked. Clever traps, born from human ingenuity, could hold off foes far larger and stronger. But cleverness alone would not be enough. The dragon, weak but alert, shifted closer to him. Its amber eyes locked on his, and he felt a strange connection, like a silent understanding passing between them. "We're partners," he said softly, "and we fight together." The intruders regrouped, shouting threats and insults. They had come expecting an easy victory, a dragon to sell, and maybe a human too foolish to resist. They did not anticipate quick thinking, precise traps, or a human willing to stand firm in the face of danger. Ronan adjusted the cage slightly, angling it between the intruders and the dragon. One of the men tried to rush past the barrier. The dragon hissed sharply, wings flaring, claws scraping against the cage. Sparks of energy arced from its patches, flickering along its body like tiny storms. The intruder froze. Ronan realized the dragon was reacting to his calm confidence. Its energy pulses were small, tentative, but they had power. He whispered instructions, "Watch their movements. Time it. Don't strike unless I say." The dragon's eyes narrowed, muscles coiling as if preparing to obey. Humans survived not because of raw strength, but because they adapted, used intelligence, and refused to back down. And now the dragon would fight alongside him. The next few moments passed in tense silence. Ronan's mind raced. He could not leave the workshop, there was nowhere to run. But he did not panic. He studied the intruders carefully, noting their patterns, their overconfidence. Then he acted. A flick of a switch, a spark of energy along the floor, and the closest intruder yelped as magnetic pulses tugged at his weapon. Another tripped over a hidden cable, cursing violently. The dragon roared, soft but sharp enough to make the men hesitate. That roar carried more than sound. It carried awe, surprise, the unmistakable mark of life refusing to be controlled. Ronan moved quickly, repositioning the cage. He could feel the creature's strength growing, muscles responding to his careful repairs. "Now," he said, and the dragon's roar rose louder, resonating through the room. Sparks shot from its body, arcs of energy illuminating the workshop in flickering light. The intruders froze, backing toward the door. Their weapons shook in their hands as they realized they had underestimated both the dragon and the human beside it. Ronan's mind worked faster than ever. Humans thrived on improvisation. He grabbed a portable net launcher and fired at the nearest intruder, tangling his legs. Another stumbled over a tripwire, crashing into a stack of old machinery. The remaining attackers hesitated, unsure how to proceed. And in that moment, the dragon stepped forward inside its cage, its energy pulses flaring, wings stretching just enough to show raw, untamed potential. It had not been trained to fight, yet it acted instinctively, following the rhythm of human courage. The intruders exchanged glances, realizing their mistake. The rumor of a useless dragon was false. It was a creature that, under the guidance of a human, could defy expectations and strike fear into even seasoned thieves. Ronan seized the moment. He shouted, "Leave now or you'll regret it." The words were calm but firm, carrying a weight humans naturally wielded when they refused to surrender. With a final, defiant hiss, the dragon pulsed energy along its wings. One intruder tripped, another stumbled backward, and all three scrambled to the exit, leaving behind their pride, their weapons, and their illusions of superiority. Ronan breathed deeply, sweat dripping from his brow. The dragon lowered its head, panting softly, wings twitching as it settled again. For a brief moment, the workshop was silent except for their shared breaths. Ronan smiled faintly. "Good work," he whispered. "You did well. But this is just the beginning." The dragon's eyes met his, brighter, more alive than before. It understood now. Its life had value but only because a human refused to give up. Together they had held back impossible odds and survived. Outside, shadows lingered. The intruders were gone, but more would come. Word would spread of the human who dared to save a dragon, the creature that had been called worthless. Ronan knew they could not stay here long. He would have to find a safer place, continue repairs, and prepare for the next threat. The dragon stirred again, wings stretching fully for the first time, tiny sparks running along its scales. It was ready to rise, but only if Ronan let it. He looked around the workshop at the tools, the circuits, the half-repaired systems. There was work to be done, danger still ahead, and a world that had underestimated both of them. And yet, for the first time, he felt hope. Together they could fight, survive, and prove that even the weakest could become legends. The city outside was dark, the night alive with unknown threats. But inside, a human and a dragon had begun a bond no one could break. And that bond would soon be tested in ways neither of them had imagined. Ronan glanced at the dragon, now fully alert, its amber eyes glowing brighter than ever. The intruders had fled, but he knew the city's dangers were far from over. Mercenaries, thieves, even city officials could be alerted by now. Staying in the workshop would only invite more trouble. He needed a plan and fast. He ran his hands along the dragon's stabilizers, checking every connection. The creature's body pulsed with renewed energy, muscles twitching as if testing themselves for the first time in years. "We have to move," he said. "We can't hide forever. We need space to breathe, to heal, to get stronger." The dragon tilted its head, letting out a soft hiss that seemed like agreement. Ronan scanned the city from the workshop's skylight. Narrow alleys twisted like mazes, and patrol drones hovered above, scanning for trouble. He mapped a route in his mind, calculating every turn, every possible trap. Humans survived not by running blindly but by thinking faster, seeing paths others missed. He glanced at the dragon and whispered, "You follow my lead. I'll guide us. Trust me." He opened the cage door slowly. The dragon didn't hesitate. It stepped out, wings folding carefully as it tested its balance. The creature's scales shimmered under the dim lights, tiny sparks running along its mechanical patches. Every movement was cautious yet deliberate, showing a strength born from survival and the guidance of a human who refused to quit. As they moved through the first alley, a patrol drone hovered above. Ronan froze, analyzing its sensors. A direct fight would be reckless. He crouched low, dragging the dragon behind a stack of crates. Using a handheld signal jammer, he scrambled the drone's sensors. The machine blinked, hesitated, then flew past, unaware of their presence. The dragon growled softly as if acknowledging the human's cleverness. The path narrowed. The dragon's wings brushed against the walls, sending sparks flickering into the shadows. Ronan felt a thrill of hope. Its strength was returning faster than he had expected. But he also felt the tension. Every step was dangerous. Outside the alley, mercenaries could be lying in wait. Inside, the dragon was not yet fully healed. They had only moments to act. Suddenly, a siren wailed, echoing down the streets. Light beams swept across the alley. Ronan's pulse quickened. They had been spotted. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small flare, tossing it behind them. The light flared, reflecting off the alley walls, momentarily blinding sensors and giving them precious seconds. The dragon responded instinctively. It leapt, wings snapping open, and carried both of them into the night sky. The city below shrank rapidly. Ronan held on tight, guiding the dragon with subtle shifts of weight and pressure. The creature's energy pulsed beneath him, growing stronger with each flap. He realized for the first time that this dragon was more than a machine patched onto flesh. It was alive, intelligent, powerful, and it had chosen to follow him. Below, the mercenaries fired plasma rifles, but the dragon's speed and agility kept them out of range. Ronan's mind raced, calculating maneuvers. Humans survived by improvising, adapting faster than anyone else. He guided the dragon through narrow gaps between skyscrapers, under bridges, and past floating billboards. Every movement was calculated, precise. Together, they became a force no enemy could anticipate. The dragon roared suddenly, a deep, resonating sound that made the air tremble. Ronan felt it in his chest. Sparks flew from its scales, energy pulsing outward in waves. The mercenaries froze, unsure what they were seeing. They had expected a weak, useless beast. Instead, they were confronted by a creature awakened by human courage, guided by intelligence and determination. Ronan leaned closer to the dragon, whispering instructions. Its wings flared wider, propelling them over the city's outer wall. The wind whipped past them, carrying a scent of freedom. For the first time, the dragon's full power emerged, not destructive but controlled, focused. Every pulse of energy responded to Ronan's commands, every movement showing a bond formed through trust and courage. As they cleared the city limits, the dragon's roar grew again, louder, echoing across the plains outside. Ronan smiled, feeling the surge of triumph. They had not just survived, they had overcome impossible odds together. The dragon, once considered worthless, had become a legend in the making. And it had done so because a human refused to give up, because courage and intelligence had turned weakness into power. Below them, the city receded, lights flickering in the distance. The mercenaries would not follow. They had learned to fear the bond between human and dragon. Ronan's heart pounded, not from exhaustion but from exhilaration. Humans survived not by brute force alone, but by ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to surrender when the world said they were weak. The dragon landed gently on a rocky plateau outside the city. Its wings folded, tail brushing the ground. Ronan stepped down, touching its scales. They were warm, alive, vibrating with energy. "We're safe for now," he said softly. "But this is just the beginning. You and I will show them what humans can do." The creature nudged him gently, almost as if acknowledging his words. The night was calm, but Ronan knew danger still lingered. Others would come, curious, greedy, or hostile. Yet, with courage, intelligence, and trust, they had triumphed. The dragon was not just a beast. It was proof that humans could turn impossible odds into victory. And somewhere deep in the darkness, unseen eyes watched them, sensing the rise of something extraordinary, a bond between a human and a dragon that would shake the galaxy. Ronan breathed in the night air, feeling hope and resolve. He had faced impossible odds before, but never like this. Together, they had turned fear into strength, weakness into power, and doubt into triumph. And the roar of that dragon would echo for a long time, a signal to all that humans could rise no matter what the odds. The sun rose over Kythera Outpost, painting the rocky cliffs with gold and orange light. Ronan stood at the edge, the dragon beside him, wings folded but trembling with residual energy. The night had been long, tense, and full of danger, but they had survived. The city behind them lay quiet, unaware of the legend that had just escaped its grasp. Ronan brushed his fingers along the dragon's scales, feeling warmth and life under the metal patches. The creature had grown stronger with every repair, every careful adjustment, every moment of courage. It was no longer weak, no longer useless. It had chosen him as its guide, its protector, and in doing so had rediscovered its own power. He knelt, examining the last few stabilizers in its neural core. The repairs had held, but he knew the real challenge was not mechanical. The dragon's trust had been earned through patience, courage, and determination. It had survived abuse, neglect, and the judgment of a galaxy that dismissed it as worthless. And it had thrived because a human refused to give up. The dragon lifted its head, amber eyes locking with his. Its roar was low but steady, a vibration of life and energy that resonated through the cliffs. Ronan smiled. For the first time he felt what he had always sought, proof that humans could create hope, not just survive. That courage, intelligence, and moral choice could change outcomes where others saw only despair. In the distance, the first travelers arrived at the outpost. Children on the rocky paths paused, pointing at the dragon. Merchants and scavengers whispered to each other, curiosity in their voices. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy. A human had saved a dragon, thought broken, and survived against impossible odds. They would tell the story of courage, of defiance, of intelligence and heart, and it would inspire others. Ronan stood tall, looking out at the horizon. He remembered the first moment he had seen the dragon, small, trembling, almost lifeless, locked in a cage that mocked its potential. The galaxy had dismissed it, but he had not. He had invested more than credits. He had invested trust, patience, skill, and courage. And now, both he and the dragon had risen above what others said was impossible. The dragon shifted, wings stretching as it tested its strength. Sparks flickered along its scales, energy flowing smoothly now. It lifted slightly, testing flight. Ronan jumped, catching onto the ridges along its back. Together they lifted off the cliffs, soaring into the sky. The wind whipped past, carrying the taste of freedom. Every beat of its wings, every roar, was a message. Humanity could achieve greatness, even when the world doubted them. As they flew, Ronan thought of those who had laughed at him, the intruders who had assumed they could claim the dragon with ease. They were wrong. Humans were not predictable, and courage was not bound by size, strength, or circumstance. Where others saw weakness, he saw potential. Where others hesitated, he acted. And that action had created something extraordinary, a bond that could defy anyone who underestimated them. Below, the outpost settlers paused to watch. The dragon's roar echoed across the plains, a sound that carried awe, respect, and fear. Ronan felt pride, not arrogance, but satisfaction. He had fought, thought, and chosen courage over convenience. That choice had saved a life, and in doing so, had reminded the galaxy of a truth often forgotten. Humans could take the impossible and make it extraordinary. The dragon landed again on a plateau further from the city. Ronan slid from its back, feeling his legs shake but steady with adrenaline. He knelt, brushing its scales one last time before standing tall. "We've come far," he said. "But our story isn't over. The galaxy will test us again, and when it does, we'll rise." The dragon nudged him gently, as if acknowledging his words, a silent promise of loyalty and partnership. For hours they rested on the cliffs, watching the horizon. Travelers would come, curious and cautious. Stories would spread of a human who saved a dragon for nothing more than courage and determination. And those stories would inspire others, showing that even the smallest, weakest creatures, or humans themselves, could achieve greatness if they refused to give up. Ronan thought about the nights in the workshop, the tense moments in the alleys, the calculations, the risks. Every challenge had been a choice. Every choice had been human. And every choice had led to this: a dragon alive, a bond forged, and a legacy begun. As the sun climbed higher, the dragon lifted its wings fully, energy pulsing in visible waves along its body. Ronan climbed onto its back one last time. "Let's see how far we can go," he said. The dragon's roar answered him, full and resonant, carrying hope across the plains and beyond. Together they soared over Kythera outpost, rising into the clouds. Below, the world watched, silent and in awe. Above, the future stretched wide, full of challenges, danger, and opportunity. And one truth remained clear: humans with courage, intelligence, and determination could turn even the weakest into legends. Ronan smiled, feeling the wind whip past him. The galaxy had doubted them. It had mocked them. But now, a human and a dragon had risen together, a force of heart and mind that would not be ignored. Their roar would echo for years to come, a signal that when humans refuse to yield, when they act with courage and intelligence, they can achieve what no one else believes possible. And in that moment, soaring higher than the cliffs, higher than the city, higher than fear, Ronan and the dragon became more than survivors. They became a symbol that courage can awaken greatness, that hope can ignite power, and that humans, human minds and hearts, can defy impossible odds and leave a legacy no one will ever forget.